We're live this week in Coverager, our weekly format where we go over a lot of the news articles that made it or perhaps didn't make it into Coverager for the week. And we discuss it and argue and debate and all of that. And so, Avi, Sheffy, good morning.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Good morning. So, Avi, I'll kick it right over to you. We are in the week of, this is May 15th, so the week of May 10th. And I'll kick it over to you. What's happening this week in Coverager?
So definitely this week's biggest story was, I would say, a Coverager exclusive. Bestow, Ladder, Ethos. Ladder, we knew that they were working with financial advisors, agents in the past, but Bestow had a job posting looking for an agency service specialist to help onboard agents, among other things. And Ethos, another life insurance startup, also apparently is looking to work with agents. Looks like they have the platform already in place. A lot of course, clicks, a lot of comments, a lot of shares. I think it's an interesting story, not because it's like working with agents is a failure. It's not. But when these companies came out to the world, they made an effort to talk about how they want to replace agents and want to give consumers a more convenient alternative. And the reality is that consumers may find Bestow Ethos Ladder as an alternative to agents in the medical exam, although that's not the case in every case. But it looks like that these companies weren't able to find an alternative to agents themselves. And talking about, of course, the distribution standpoint. And personally, and this is my personal opinion, I expect more from a company that raised 100 million, 90 million, 70 million. I want to see something new. I don't want to see you guys with a shiny website and then just years later go in and say, okay, we're willing to work with agents. If you're an MGA and you're taking a commission already, and now you're bringing someone else that is going to take the commission from you, then where's the business model? So that to me is kind of like, show us something new. You have the technology, you have the talent, no legacy is holding you back. Let's see something different. And that was the big story of the week for us.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Sheffy, I think it gets to the heart of the matter of you hear a lot of technologists who come in and they almost scoff at, oh, do you know how many times we've heard an industry tell us our industry is different? But I think this is one of the particular aspects of insurance that makes it different is that no one really wants to buy the product. By itself makes it extremely different and makes the sale extremely hard.
you have an indifferent consumer. I don't know how often we can repeat that, right? We like to say that insurance is a rarely differentiated product sold to a generally indifferent consumer. If you go to sleep with that and you wake up with that, I think your ability or your willingness to explore areas that will not be futile will just decrease
Yep.
tremendously,
Yep.
right? Um, my other takeaway about this story is that people's mindset change, right? So you look at these founders, and first you have to tell a story. And the thing is, they're digital at the core. So if you're digital at the core and now you're adding humans, I still think that it's probably more efficient than somebody that started with a really big, human capital and then trying to go digital. So I do think that the sequencing here makes sense. So they're expanding. To Avi's point, not necessarily a failure, just a matter of, okay, the storyline is changing, and what does this mean? And I think we talked about this a little bit. I feel like off of coverage or off the record. If you're a full stack insurer, what's the return going to be? Is it the best way? Is it an efficient way for your capital in terms of deployment? And so we know of other insurers like Crude going the B2B route, trying to be a technology company. So everybody's trying to grow in different ways. They have to right now. I mean, they had to before, but now there's even more pressure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I was going to say you brought up a really interesting point there because a full stack insurer already requires a massive amount of capital just to be full stack. So before they even sell their first policy, you're talking potentially tens of millions of dollars that are required just to take your first breath, issue your first policy. So to Avi, to add to that, to then go D2C and take on the entire burden of marketing and selling, closing that sale. I think that's part of the biggest disconnect is I think they can do it digitally, that they can do the marketing and they probably have a background. A lot of folks that come in probably have a background where they've been successful with just digital marketing, and that allowed almost an A to Z transaction where you can generate the lead, walk them through the sales cycle, and then close them. That doesn't happen in insurance. You actually need a little bit of sales once the dollar value goes up. For both of you, but the amount of investment that's going to be required to be full stack and D2C seems like a burden that's too big to handle.
It's an interesting point, and there are different takeaways. But to Shafi's point, she mentioned Root, and this is something we said in the past. I say good job for Root because they could also go and say, "Oh, we're willing to work with agents," just like ClearCover said, like, "Hey, agents, we want you." They didn't want that. They didn't want that image, so they went to build a B2B product for different reasons. But a lot of it is to make more money. And this is a very successful company. I would say successful in terms of, getting policies on the book, making noise. Of course, they're still small, but if you look at compared to other insurance startups, they are well ahead of the pack. But life insurance is a very different product. Jerry Seinfeld said, it's, and I took it for life insurance, breaking up is like knocking over a Coke machine. You can't do it with one push. You have to go back and forth a few times and then it goes over. And this is the same with life insurance. You got to nudge people. And that's the beauty of an agent. You got to come and say, well, think about this and that. And then there's a lengthy process. And by the way, there's a lengthy process. I went to get a quote from Ladder. I think it was for 500,000 or $1 million. And because I have a family history of heart issues, they said, okay, you need a medical exam. So like I couldn't get it online. So there was no innovation in that end to say, hey, we don't need you to take your blood. Like you'll have to pay more. I'll get that. I understand. So there's no innovation in the product yet, like significant innovation at least. And then the whole concept of, okay, we now need help with distribution. And like Shafi said, go to sleep with indifferent consumer and rarely differentiated product. Also go to sleep with something I've been saying for a while. Insurance companies have no right to be consumer-facing brands. It's that simple. You don't. Did you hear that, by the way?
No.
Oh, so it's just me. But insurance companies have no right to be consumer-facing brands.
It was State Farm pinging your phone.
Yeah, I was like, okay, what's going on?
Like,
I got two Ambler alerts today. Yeah, but that's the point. If you can't have a good enough reason to require, like, demand that attention from a consumer, then you can't be at the front. You need to be back behind the scenes, and that's what insurance companies have been doing for many, many years. They've been kind of waiting, let the agent get the business, and that's it. You're coming in, you want to spend on marketing, Google ads, Facebook ads, TV ads. You're not going to see the return as quick as you hope, and it's definitely not going to be a good return. And it's, from a financial standpoint, and another element that's interesting with Ethos on their website for the agents, they say, well, if the consumer pays month to month, then we're not giving you the full year's commission. Like, we're going to give you a commission month to month as well. If they pay annually, you'll get the full commission. So now they're getting into this world where an agent is saying, wait a second, Transamerica is going to pay me up front, whether the customer pays monthly or yearly. Now Ethos is saying month by month, so now the agent is making that decision and saying, I'm going to go with Transamerica because I need the money now. So do you want to be in that world? I don't think so.
And how many decisions do the agents now have to make? I feel like every other day I hear of an agency solution proposition out there. Everybody is all of a sudden, it's not all of a sudden actually, it's been like this for years, maybe just heightened because of folks pivoting to other business models, to other channels, right? But
Yeah.
people are targeting agents more.
And by the way, agents
That's
need.
the population that's like supposedly diminishing or
Yeah,
being merged, or a lot less agents, supposed to be a lot less agents out there.
and I can tell you that.
All agents are
Yeah,
creative, by the way.
and the modern consumer, the one that is going to Google, is not searching for agents. They're not. They're simply not doing that. I believe we did some research around it. 2.7% of the most popular search terms around insurance have the word broker or agent in them. So
I'd
that's
be
a
very
problem.
interested to find out when folks are searching for insurance, just from my really basic understanding of how Google AdWords work, I believe like the most common search is like cheap auto insurance and
Car insurance,
yeah.
compare car insurance, cheap car insurance.
And if those are the folks that are searching for insurance, like the active buyers, that's a bad sign. Like that's not a market you want to necessarily get in front of, because they'll leave you if they find something cheaper. Like you really have to be the lowest cost provider of insurance to acquire and keep that. And you probably need to keep them for a while because it's probably pretty expensive to get them.
And another element, what's interesting about.
It's really expensive to get them, I think.
Yeah, it's expensive, but it's also, as you said, is this the right customer? And when you take this to life insurance, not as many people search to begin with because it's a product that isn't top of mind. Like you see Geico and Progressive on TV all the time. Mm-hmm. You know, it's a mandatory product. You have to get it. There's a big knowledge gap around life insurance. And I still feel like, you know, you go every life insurance website, traditional, you see a picture of a mom, a dad, and a baby. Everywhere you go, a mom, a dad, and a baby. And then you're saying, okay, well, if I don't have a baby or if I don't have a wife, then I probably don't need life insurance yet. Or maybe if I have a wife, but I don't have a baby, then I don't need it. So people are also getting married later and not having as many kids as they used to. And I feel like a lot of companies that invested in these life insurance players from the industry, because they do have some backing from the industry, they kind of said, well, you know what? Maybe they'll find a way to talk to millennials. Maybe they'll find a way to get this top of mind. And, you know, it's a rough road.
Well, as I was talking to one of my colleagues yesterday, and it was exactly this discussion. So it's just right on topic. And we talked about how, you know, about the life insurance industry. And he asked me, well, what's your life insurance situation, Nick? And I said, well, I'm actively looking. And he's like, how old are you? He's like, if it took, you know, what's it taking for you to finish this? Young professionals aren't interested. Young people are not interested in buying it. Like it is a, Avi, to your point, I think it's a really tough sell. Young professionals are not buying it, and they're waiting for that moment where they do have a baby in a house and they're almost guilted into doing it. And I could tell you from personal experience, that's why I'm updating mine. It was my wife who was like, hey, what's your life insurance situation?
It always gets back to the wife.
Oh, yeah.
You control the purse strings.
The same case with me.
So many Twitter jokes are on that topic. But,
yeah.
But that just heightens your, I think that's the conclusion. Life insurers don't have a right to be consumer-facing brand. Wouldn't you say?
Yeah, unless again, you offer more. And this is the thing, like, agents are not going to save you. If Ethos is hearing this, if Ladder is hearing this, if Bestow is hearing this, agents are not going to save you. You have enough money, enough talent to go beyond insurance. Just like maybe be, you know, a money management app.
That's already taken.
Yeah, do something beyond, because again, if Root needs to be a B2B player, and you see other companies going, you know, expanding vertically, then why not a life insurance company say, let's have another revenue stream to offset our very expensive customer acquisition cost? You have to. You can't be one-dimensional today. If you are one-dimensional, then you're going to be standing in a very long line trying to compete for consumers' attention.
Well, I know that there are some life insurers that are. I think John Hancock has um, a policy where the life insurance is linked to like smartwatch and your gym membership and some of those other things. I'm not really seeing that, and to me, that's a disappointment. It gets. I go back. Sometimes you need to sort of simplify the problem. The Netscape's first CEO once said, "There's only in the business world, there's only two ways to make money. You're either bundling things or unbundling things. And life insurance is completely unbundled, stripped bare, and you're struggling to sell it. And I'm as you're saying that, Avi, I'm thinking, well, then the only alternative is to start bundling stuff in, risk management, other services. Like you have no choice. I think they've tried to do that. That's why there's so many different types of life insurance products, universal, variable. They've sort of tried to do that, but that just raises the complexity of the product where you definitively will need a salesperson to explain it and close the deal.
And many options are out there. Like if Ethos would go tomorrow to Peloton, the bike exercise company, the lifestyle company, and they would go say, look, we want to be your exclusive life insurance provider, just like AXA does with football teams in Europe. That's a good audience, an audience that has money, that cares about health, that probably will get an instant decision online. That's something I would be excited to see. It's going to cost them money, but it's better than relying on agents.
Cost them money
right
anyways.
Now. Exactly. So many things. And again, it's nice to see, for example, the whole like walking 10,000 steps and the Vitality app, and Score is doing something in the space as well. It's good because for some consumers, I'll give you this as an example. There is a calorie counting app called Lose It in Boston. I don't count my calories, so I'm not a user. But they have, I believe, over 35 million users. Out of them, 500,000 paid users that pay around $40 a year. Now, the big Vitality, the one from all over the world, they have, I believe, around 10 million users, maybe 12 million users. Of course, Vitality has way more resources. Lose It only raised like $5.5 million. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
And 35 million users, 500,000 paid users. Why not Ethos like doing something together with that company, having such an enormous amount of data, what people eat every day, and maybe not making money from selling insurance to them, but maybe being the connector for someone like maybe AIG wants access to the data. Maybe Score wants access to the data.
This isn't a technology problem. It's a marketing problem. And I'm basically offering the marketing angle. You don't have to go all in like Vitality. And well, you can. Not everybody has the resources that Vitality has. So if you're thinking how to compete, there are other options. And the beauty of marketing is that, one, you have to be consistent in having your brand out there, but two, you can play around and check what works and what doesn't. And, that's why we're big fans of alternative distribution, and where it counts, we'll talk about companies like Lose It or companies like Nanit, which we've mentioned already a few times. And they announced another round this week, actually. So, there weren't a lot of breaking news in insurance this week. It was kind of slow. But outside of insurance, there's a whole world.
Yeah. So, without beating the dead horse here, let's. Are there any other particular stories that kind of intrigued you? Anything off the record?
We have a lot of off the record. That's the problem. It's off the record.
Well, just between us then.
Oh boy.
No, I mean, I guess this episode will like kind of focus on that and the life angle, and I'm nervous we're just going to keep having this conversation, and I'm particularly, I don't know. I think I'm curious. The dividing line seems to be that there's domain expertise on both sides and they can't quite get together to create that market, Sheffy. Like, there's obviously people need life insurance. People like technology. How come they can't quite get together? What is the dividing wall that's preventing them from getting there? I can't explain it, but I think it just goes to show you that insurance is just massively complex, much more complex than people from the outside think it is.
I actually think, and I tell this to Sheffy all the time, insurance is, from a consumer perspective, in my opinion, it's a very simple product. It's about price, because you don't give people anything else. And we spoke yesterday to an insurance professional, and he, just joined an interesting insurance startup that doesn't have an AM Best rating yet. And he was concerned about, should I join this company? Like, will consumers even buy insurance from a company without an AM Best rating? And apparently, yeah, a lot of people are buying insurance from them. And insurance is a game of price. It's a game of value. What else can you bring to the table? And if you don't bring anything to the table, then you have a problem. And that's where, we talk about life. At the end of the day, I like what Policy Genius is doing. Not because I'm saying they are more efficient or because they are more effective, just because they're taking on, like, helping people understand and staying with the consumer with content and different aspects. So it gives them more of a reason to be of like a hub of information and the ability, of course, to buy different products. So again, focusing on the technology, focusing on your brand.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It is, I mean, at a very high level, it is easy. It is an easy product. I think it's underneath it, in the back office, where the sausage is made, gets much more complex. And being able to connect dots to the consumer, or allowing the consumer to connect the dots becomes a bit of a problem, because it's not an exciting product. They don't really want to learn about it. They just kind of want to have the solution available. And if the consumer is not willing to do the necessary legwork to understand the difference between product A and product B, it's always going to come down to price.
Yeah.
And that's the way it is. And so it is up to us as insurance professionals to make sure that it's like, what ways do we need to turn the marketing into a video game to get people excited about it? Like, to get them to understand the difference between A and B and what it is that they're paying for. And I'll tell you, for my career, I did brokering at Aon, and I remember I had a particular account where they had options. They chose Chubb. They chose Chubb every year, even when Chubb was raising prices. And it was because they had a really positive claims experience. And and Chubb has a reputation for paying their claims. Chubb has a reputation for paying for claims they don't necessarily have to pay for. And for that business, that was very important. They were willing to pay more to be able to sleep at night. There's not a lot of consumers like that.
No, not a lot. And I feel like in business, and we saw this with coverage, or when we got coverage, price wasn't a factor for us. And it's not because we have a lot of money. We don't, I can tell you that. But when it's a business, you don't want to take any risks. Like for me, if you tell me car insurance, I think I'm a good driver, don't worry about it. Renter's insurance, I don't cook or bake or anything, don't worry about it. But when it comes to your business, I totally agree. And we hear great things about Chubb all the time. People are saying, oh, the claims and the service. And those
are negative things. Come on, Chubb isn't as great as, I don't buy into it. I've heard that they've also increased prices after claims. So I think that there are always many sides, and that's the thing. We're dealing with so many clients, so many preferences. Avi's preference for small business insurance and his priorities aren't necessarily in line with the other person, with the different person in the street. So if you're just targeting a very niche segment, then that's what you're going to get. And we've seen a lot of that happen in insurtech. But if you want scale, then you're starting to look left and right, and you need more than that. So I think you may lead with price, and oftentimes you lead with price in the commodity area of the business. But in small business is a different topic. It's so complicated. we have yet to see success stories. I mean, I think Hiscox is a success story, Next is a success story, or at least getting there. But here are two companies, for instance, that wouldn't offer coverage to us, right? And I thought we were a prototype for them, and we aren't, right? So small business is so complex. That really is the issue. So if you want to go digital, think of a commodity product, think of a product that a customer will buy online without needing to talk with an agent. It's not always tied to a premium. Vice versa, you know, if you want to be, you know, something else, or where there's room to actually care or have the product be more meaningful, then it's areas that you can actually have a conversation and explain. Because for us, for coverage or media liability, professional liability is really important. You want to have that conversation. And, you know, by the way, credit to CoverWallet, because CoverWallet was the only one that wanted to have a conversation with us. And it was a specific agent, which, by the way, left after we got insured, right? So that was our relationship with CoverWallet. And now the relationship is a little bit different. It's not necessarily good or bad. We don't know. But it just goes to show you where an agent does make a difference. Many other agents didn't want to have a conversation beyond, here's your quote, take it. Someone actually told me, what's the problem? If it's around 5K, you should, you know, it sounds good. But he wouldn't just go into the specifics of what coverage. There is no problem. 5K isn't a problem. The problem is that I want to understand what I'm buying, and you can't send me to a contract to read it, because I won't necessarily know to connect the dots.
So that,
And you know, yeah,
that's the problem. Like, to me, that use case just sort of encapsulates everything that's difficult about selling an insurance policy, because here you are as a motivated buyer that wants to be educated, and the industry still doesn't want to educate you. You know, and I know there are a lot of agents that are going to be listening to this. They're gonna tweet at us and say, no, we do that. I believe that. But there's so few of them, and I think, Coverager would be the exception. Most folks do not want to be educated. It's just
no, you know,
make sure
yeah.
I'm covered and give me the cheapest price.
I think that's when, you know, ClearCover really did a good job, the agent, and making it very simple. And we had concerns. CoverWallet, sorry. So CoverWallet really made an effort.
You don't want to get sued.
Yeah. The agent made a good effort and explained, bottom line, if you do this, you're covered. If you do this, you're covered. And they wanted our business. It wasn't, I'm sure he didn't make a ton of money out of it because, you know, the amount. But there was another agency that represents Hiscox, and the agent was too busy with renewals. So again, our business was not big enough, which is fine. But, you know, I want to go back. There's a big story that kind of we may have missed. We didn't talk much about it, but this is as, you know, a different take on what Ethos, Ladder, and Bestow is doing, and that's Prudential and Assurance IQ. So Assurance IQ lost this quarter, I believe, 30-something million, 32, 33, 31 million. They've
30.
lost last quarter as well. And here is a company, Prudential, that thought they discovered the Holy Grail, that Prudential has developed or cracked the code, as they said. They said they cracked the code of selling insurance. Now, what code they actually cracked, what they thought they cracked, is onboarding commission-based agents, working from home, you know, want to make a lot of money. And this is, of course, you know, it's a big problem with financial, like Northwestern Mutual, Mass Mutual, a lot of retention problems. I believe 90% don't make it the first year. It's hard to work on commissions, especially nowadays. So they bring all these agents, and they get you know, they have to have their headset, they have to have internet, they get all these motivational emails, which stopped, by the way, because some of them were distasteful. But no, it's not working. It's not working because whoever you bring, whoever is, I would say, naive enough to just buy insurance from the first person that calls them on the phone, that's not a sophisticated customer. That's not the millennial. That may be someone that's, you know, on disability or getting Social Security. So targeting a very specific demographic. And Prudential, that's another niche to my like view. Prudential will never be able to make this mainstream.
But
Yeah.
Prudential thought that they bought, that this has been said to us many times, and here's something off the record. They kept on saying, we bought the Uber of insurance. I don't know why they necessarily thought that was a good model, but that's the scale that they were hoping to get. And they were hoping to bring agents on board in a way where you're only paying for, it's that back to that win-win model, by the way, which you don't have in the digital world. In the digital world, you have to take a chance. You have a Facebook ad, you have a Google ad, somebody may click, somebody's getting a commission. Ladder is paying just for a commission only on presenting a quote, right? That's a modern player. But back in the old days, you only paid when someone actually gave you a client. That's the agency model. And it worked really well, again. But are you targeting the millennials? Are you targeting confused seniors that may have clicked on a sweepstake and landed on your website? And, you have the automated phone calling.
And this is a big deal. Like, we saw a tweet.
It's a big deal for them.
Now, Prudential's pride, I believe, is not going to let them kind of let the business fail. They're going to try to make it work, and it's not going to work because, again, no young educated person is going to buy a final expense product from Lumico. It's not going to happen. It's very simple. So they're targeting an older demographic that I don't know how I will be when I will be 70. I don't know if you think about that. Do you think you'll be naive all of a sudden? Like, hey, how do I do on my phone? Or how do I do this or that? I don't know.
My wife says I'm naive now.
Oh, okay. So I hope it, I don't know how we will be. It's interesting. Like I see older people and they have sometimes a hard time. And I have someone that I worked for that for some reason, someone called him and asked for his Medicare number. And he gave the number. And he was a very smart, sharp business guy, but for some reason he thought that it was a good idea to give the number, and of course there was fraud and all that. So it's not going to work. They could be on Instagram, they could be on Twitter telling agents come work. There's Glassdoor today, insurance forums. Everybody knows that it doesn't work. So I wonder if they're kind of going to say, well, they should ask for their money back. That's what I think they should do. But if they can't ask for their money back, they should just, take a loss, don't invest more. They're bringing in new executives, new people, hiring, trying to make this more, and I don't think it's going to go anywhere.
The funny thing is that they are admitting that they're learning and trying to improve the product, and this is after paying a premium.
I know.
So
stories like that incredibly frustrate me because, the industry already has a bad stereotype. This exacerbates it. We're going to bring in a bunch of people that don't know anything about the industry, give them some quick training, throw a bunch of leads at them, and then have them go and run and try to sell stuff. The incentives are all wrong to begin with. And Avi, as you're telling that story, I'm like, my blood's boiling because I'm thinking of the person that's doesn't know very much about insurance and they need the product and they get sold the wrong product. And in the life insurance has a horrible history of this sort of crap where it's like they just needed a 10-year term policy and they end up getting like this variable universal with like high surrender costs and all this other crap that they throw in, and the agents just get paid and paid and paid. The incentives are terrible, and it's the life insurance companies, the carriers themselves, are part of the problem. It is one area where I think P&C gets the incentives a little bit better with spreading the commission out over time versus one upfront large commission, which just produces horrible incentives, and that whole story just makes my blood boil.
Do you think it's because I always had this thought? Do you think it's because P&C, like auto insurance, is regulated? You have to buy it. And there's not much regulation, like it's not mandatory around life. And so these companies are trying different tactics because a lot of them are sleazy salespeople. That's what it is. So I feel like because auto insurance, you have to buy it, you go to the customer and say, look, you need to have this anyway. So let's move on and I'll tell you why you should buy from me versus why should you buy this?
The regulators have standardized it. Like there's not that much difference between policies. You can't get like an ultra auto. You just buy bigger limits, but they've all been like neatly classified by the regulators.
It's crazy because I always felt
out loud in like the Insurance Journal Academy.
No, but Prudential, is not a company. I would never think of Prudential doing what a company like Assurance IQ does. Never. Like, I really feel like Prudential is targeting more of the wealthier people. And they said, oh, we wanted to buy Assurance IQ because give us access to a larger demographic that may not have the money to buy our products. But again, you could go a little down. You can go to the broke millennials like myself, but you're going way, way down to people that can't even, they don't have a credit card. You know, they don't have a credit card.
Yeah.
A lot of Assurance IQ customers have no credit card. So I feel like something went wrong there. I'm still trying to understand what, but no way that Prudential really knew what they were getting into, because if they did, they would not have paid 2.3 billion plus another earnout that could be 3.5 billion. It's just crazy. And I'm sure there's a lot of pressure on the CEO of Assurance IQ. Seeing these quarters, losing a lot of his key people have been replaced. Some of them are still there, but new Prudential people came in. So I don't know how happy he is, but you know.
Well, we're really beating this dead horse. So
Here, I'll wrap it up for you.
well, since the horse has fallen over and we're all hitting it with a stick, I'll add one more. I'm doing research on life insurers now, and they're almost entirely run by accountants, right? These are like, if you look at their LinkedIn profiles or you look at their history, they're at one point they're like chief financial officer. So these are finance people that are running life insurance companies. It just goes to show you, like, another of the big problems in insurance and why we cannot make this gap is you can't rely on your finance guy for innovation. You can't rely on your finance guy to understand technology. Their finance guy, I'm sure they have a super high business acumen for what they're doing, running the operation of the company, but to have them bring that market or industry into the next generation, wrong people, wrong skill sets. Very good to run the company, very good for quarterly earnings, not good to getting more people to buy, younger people to buy the product. I'm going to like keep banging the table. It's like the industry, someone said we almost need like these leaders to die off so that a younger set of leaders that are more digital savvy can get in those roles, and then things will change.
Or they can retire. They could retire, yeah. I think we could end it.
Not when they're making $10 million a year.
Well, maybe they'll come and get some green oranges in Florida.
There you go. Private joke between us. Why don't we end it there?
Sounds good.
Okay. So I don't know if you guys know there. I'm sort of settling on This Week in Coverager, which is a takeoff name from This Week in Baseball. And so I'm actually reaching out to see if I can get the music. So at some point, for those that are listening, and I'm aging myself, if you have ever watched This Week in Baseball, I hope to be able to finish these podcasts with the music that was finished on This Week in Baseball. So for Avi and Sheffy, this is This Week in Coverager. Have a great weekend. Have a great week.
Thank you. Bye,
See you
everybody.
guys.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.